Ajnanitmirandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshranmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Keludunita kedaya bishadaya pranmila damodaya samyak shastra vivadaya rasadaya pitara pitamadaya sasvat bhakti vinodaya samadaya madhurya maryadaya Shri Chaitanya nidhe dayatavadaya bhuyadamandodaya Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahadito Godadaya Pushpavanta Chitra Sangratamonada Rasa Ghanamohana Murtim Vichitra Kilimahotsavolasitam Radha Charana Viloditam Ruchirashikandam Harim Bande Vrindavaneshwarita Vaiva Padarvindam Primamritaikamakharandaraso Ghaparanam Hridyarpitam Madhupater Smarthapamugram Nirbhapayat Paramashritalamashrayami Bhaktya Vihinaya Aparadhalakshay Kshiptashthakamaditarangamadhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Swastyastu Vishvashakalo Prasidatam Dhyayanta Bhutani Shivan Mitodya Manascha Bhadram Bhajatha Dadhokshaye Aveshyatham Namatirapiyahaitaki Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Hari Nam Prabhu Ki Jai, Samaved Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Hari Bo. Pranam to each one of you. Good afternoon from Sri Ananda Ashram in North Carolina, and it's my honor, my good fortune to have darshan of each one of you today. Thank you for joining as we are warming up for our celebration of Sri Nrsimha Chaturdasi tomorrow. Also the appearance day of Sri Radha Raman the day after that. A few other celebrations in between. Before I forget, we'll be doing some live streaming for these two occasions at 5:30 p.m. EDT time. This time probably mostly US and Kiwi friendly time. So for those who would like to connect, you can connect to the same link tomorrow on Monday, 5:30 EDT, and we will be talking about both Nrsimha Chaturdasi and Sri Radharaman's day. We'll be talking about a principle that I like to call basically how the absolute is shaped by the love of his devotee, how love shapes the divine, how devotion carves the shape of the sweet absolute, whether in the case of Nrsimha Bhagavan or in the case of Sri Radharaman. So we had a pretty dynamic week here. As some of you may know, we have released the official cover of my forthcoming book, Evolution in Divine Love, the Eternal Becoming of God, Soul, and Matter. So I'm very happy with that design. Thank you so much, Mandavikram Prabhu, for the help on that. And this coming week, we'll be starting to share some other news about the book, like a gradual sharing with some of the endorsements from different friends, brothers, sisters. We are planning to do a series of podcasts revolving around the themes of the book that will somehow replace the TED Talks that we are sharing in our Tadatmya Sangha, not replacing like something is being discarded, but just taking a new shape. So we are also organizing that. We shared the news of a new website that also was launched yesterday. And what else? Few visits here. Tomorrow we are receiving Aid and Sherry, who are visiting Ananda Ashram for a few days. And then in a few weeks, I'm visiting Washington, D.C. for a retreat over there, and so on and so forth. So blessed days, as usual. And hopefully today we can get some further insight into how we can participate more comprehensively in the life of Krishna consciousness, basically. That's, at the end of the day, that's the only question that remains. How can I increase the level of my participation in reality? Reality is already happening, it's already going on. Full-blown reality is already taking place in the deeper dimensions of existence, and we are invited to that. We are invited to be members, to be participants, to feel a part of that, not to feel apart from that. So hopefully these weekly satsangs that we also have rebaptized Q&E, quest and exploration, can fulfill its purpose and can become this collective excavation project where all together are trying to ponder, wonder how we can increase our participation in reality, embrace the fullness of reality. And there's so much coming to us. The other day I was watching a small clip from an elder, from a sister tradition, from the native traditions over here in America. And he will describe a prayer that it's kind of like a very short one-line prayer. Even I may not be able to recall it perfectly now, which was not even it's not even a petition, but it's kind of a statement which leaves the door open for so many interesting things. So it was something like, my boat is so small. He's praying to God. My boat is so small and your sea is so immense. Period. End of the prayer. So he's not asking for something particular, he's just making a statement of facts, right? Your sea is so immense. What's coming from you is like an endless, bottomless ocean of love and generosity, and so many gifts up to down, left to right, in between. And my boat is so small. So to say, my vessel, my capacity to hold that wholeness still proves to be insufficient. I become bewildered, overwhelmed. So I'm just making that statement. You see what you do with that, something like that. But acknowledging, right? Acknowledging the fullness of existence, of reality, being grateful for that, and acknowledging in a humble way where we stand in front of that immensity, and being still willing to confront that. Srila Siddhar Maharaj will say, to confront our endless potential, the endless horizon of potentiality, which can be overwhelming at times, to realize there's no limit to how much progress I can make. I'm getting closer to an ocean of infinity. Riding on this small boat. So, of course, mercy, grace is more than required. That's an understatement to even say that. So hopefully here all together we can increase also our awareness and capacity to hold grace, to hold mercy, and by holding sacred space among each other, that's a way of doing so as well. So some organic thoughts that just came now, nothing planned. And I want to honor your raised hands now. So some of you are raising your digital hands. We'll entertain any questions you may have, questions, quests, exploration, thoughts, contributions, reflections, whatever you feel it's your meal to bring to the table and to honor this collective feast all together today. So I'm fastening my seatbelt and traveling from North Carolina to Berlin now, where we will meet Kanupriya. Please
Okay.
unmute yourself.
I already did, yes. Yes, actually,
Welcome.
Hare Krishna, actually already mentioned my question. My boat is so small. How can I proceed in this large ocean? So the last week I read Madhurya Kadambini, where the 9 steps of bhakti are described. And I thought it was really helpful to read it. It was the first time that I read this, because I felt it's something like a compass. Compass? It's the right word in English? Compass? To see, okay, here is the goal and this is direction. So just go there. But on the other hand, I felt, wow, 9 steps. So after 25 years, I am still on the 4th step, and there's no, I don't see any, I don't think that next week can proceed to the 5th step. So, I mean, I feel during these 25 years, I made a lot of progress, and I still do. But for me, it seems it's such a exalted way which is waiting there. And I feel my question is there any hope for me to reach the levels beyond anatta nivriti? I have also a second question regarding this, but this is my main question.
So the main question is if there is hope for Kanupriya, basically.
Yes.
You already gave the answer just now. You said you already did yes. So that's our, all of us together now, we are joining palms and saying together Om, which means yes, right?
Ooh.
Om. And Kanupriya says, ooh. Yeah. Of course there is hope. Of course there is hope. As small as our boat is, still as big as the ocean is, it's an ocean of mercy, right? So Krishna is Karuna Sindhu, right? So he's an ocean, but there are oceans and oceans. So he's an ocean made of grace. So his grace, his capacity for grace is oceanic. And our hope is to swim in that ocean, and even if we drown in that ocean, still is an ocean of grace, so no problem. But something I like to mention in regards to literature such as Madhurya Kadambini, which of course, Madhurya Kadambini is a very brief work by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which elaborates on the 9 stages of bhakti, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana, Kriyanartha, Nivritti, Nishtha, Rucha, Sakti, Bhava, Prem, which are mentioned, by the way, by Srila Rupa Goswami in 2 verses in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but not further elaborated, basically. So he does some small elaboration, not that bigger either. And there are some works with purports and commentaries on Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's work that shed further light on that. So as you said, Kanupriya, literature such as Madhurya Kadambini can act as a very interesting compass to give us like an sense of orientation in the journey, right? Because it's a good way to conceive our spiritual practice as a journey. More specifically, I would say as a pilgrimage. It's a yatra. In Sanskrit, we have the word yatra. So yatra, interestingly, means both celebration, like you have Ratha Yatra, right? The festival of the chariots. And yatra also means pilgrimage or journey. So the idea is that you have to, spiritual life can be thought of as a yatra, and yatra in this case is both celebration, festival, and journey. It should be a celebratory pilgrimage, a sacred journey, worthy of celebration. So then the question is again, how to make the journey celebratory, right? We want to traverse the path of bhakti in a way that is, as Krishna says in the Gita 9.2, susukam kartum. You are invited to practice bhakti with lots of joy, with lots of reasons to celebrate. Not to practice out of fear, intimidation, pressure, like a torture, like chamber. Like I'm here, but I need to get there, and I'm not getting there, and I need to get there. So my main point here is, as much as these books, Madhurya Kadambini, or these verses like the ones composed by Rupa Goswami, give us a compass, which is great, because we don't want to cheat ourselves thinking I'm in this stage while I may be somewhere else. We have to be very careful how we deal with those descriptions and how we deal with those depictions of stages, and not become neurotic about attaining goals and forget where we are here and now in this stage of the journey. Because I've seen that happening with many devotees. They really become absent from the present moment, and their whole lifetime and the whole practice and the whole life is about reaching somewhere else. Follow my point? Like not accepting where I am, not accepting what's coming here and now, like rejecting that as not enough, still not enough, I'm not enough, this is not enough. I'm in the third, fourth, fifth stage, I'm not in the ninth one, I'm far from my goal, I'm less than half the way, whatever, however you may want to cry. And it's a form of ungratefulness, I will say, and losing sight of the miracle that is taking place in the here and now, wherever I may be in the journey of bhakti, because you can only attain stage 7, 8, 9. First of all, if you acknowledge that you are on stage 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, or whatever. So I can only reach my desired goal if I embrace the here and now. And as I like to say, and maybe this will seem contradictory to some, I can only achieve my desired goal if I realize that my desired goal has achieved me already. Why I'm saying this? Because the goal of bhakti, and the other day I published in Spanish a short about this, and there was some, not debate, but exchange going on in the thread in Instagram. Because in my video I was saying, I was quoting the Bhagavatam, 11th canto. It says, Bhaktya Sanjataya Bhaktya, famous one line from the Bhagavatam. And this is very much in the introduction to Madhurya Kadambini. That's a point that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes strongly. I will say that's my favorite part of Madhurya Kadambini, where he quotes this line from the Bhagavatam and makes the case that bhakti comes from bhakti. Bhakti comes from bhakti, which is another way for him to say bhakti comes from sadhu sangha. But also bhakti comes from bhakti means not only my present bhakti comes from some form of bhakti, but also my present bhakti takes to some form of bhakti in the future. So bhakti comes from bhakti, and bhakti takes to bhakti. So following that idea, we could easily say the goal of bhakti is bhakti. Of course, we can become more technical and say there are different stages of bhakti. We can even speak in terms of sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. That's one possible definition. There are many possible definitions. So you could say the goal of sadhana bhakti is bhava bhakti, and the goal of bhava bhakti is prema bhakti. Yes, but the word bhakti is always there. So we could say the goal of bhakti is bhakti. So in that sense, at least from that place, let's stay with that idea for a minute. We could say, if the goal of bhakti is bhakti, and I'm already doing bhakti, what's the conclusion then? I'm already there. I obtained the goal. I'm not saying this to promote laziness, to promote complacency. Okay, then I'm at the goal. That means I'm probably a gopin, Golok Vrindavan, so I can take rest. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying, in one sense, I have not achieved the goal, arrived at the goal, but the goal has come to me. Bhakti has come to me. Bhakti is the goal. It knocked on my door and I've dared to open. And here I am on my way to divine love. I may have not yet achieved bhava bhakti, prem bhakti, all these ecstatic symptoms, all this selflessness, but I'm on my way to that. And if I do not become like a vicious monster attacking bhakti in the worst possible way, there's no obstacle to bhakti. Krishna says in the Gita, Name bhakta pranashati. He tells Arjuna, declare loudly, my devotee never perishes. Nahavi kramanasusti pratyabhaya navidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato vayat. He says in chapter 2, even the slightest progress on this path is never lost, is never diminished, and can protect you from the greatest danger. And there are so many other verses from Bhagavatam that shows how bhakti is imperishable. Bhakti is not extinguished. So all this is necessary for us to gain confidence, to gain faith in what we are doing, where we are now, and appreciating that, and being grateful for that, and of course doing something about that. So that's, for me, the healthiest way to, from where we are, arrive at the remaining stages that may be waiting for us. Instead of picking a whip, I'm still not there, never enough, I'm so far, I'm so falling, and we lose complete sight of appreciating what's already there, which is so much, And again, if we are sincere enough, success is warranted. We should have that confidence. That's a healthy confidence. That's firm faith. You were asking, Kanupriya, okay, I'm in the fourth stage, according to your examination, which will be basically Anarthani Vritti, Bhajana Kriya Anarthani Vritti. Okay, I'm not arriving at the fifth stage Nishtha anytime soon, and this weekend probably not. Okay, no problem. But Nishtha means firm faith. So probably developing firm faith in bhakti's efficacy and protection, and developing firm faith that I'm already on my path and I'm already on my way to the divine love, that's a way of approaching Nishtha. Those may be the necessary steps we may need to take where we are now to actually get there. And as I like to say, even if you eventually arrive to Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prem, you name it, there's always something else to attain. There's always a deeper level of love to express. So in one sense, there's never an arrival point, final, end point, game over. Thank God. Right? Because if not, that will be so, for me, that will be so hopeless to say, okay, once you arrive to Prem, there's nothing else to do, nothing else to discover. You cannot love Krishna deeper than that. End point, dead end. That's like, that doesn't make sense to me. And of course, that's not what scriptures say. I mean, my whole third book that I'm about to publish is all about that. The eternal becoming of love, God, soul, matter, everything is in perpetual expansion. So I'm saying this again, because sometimes we are here and we become obsessed with this goal-oriented like template, instead of a presence-oriented template. I will be more for a presence-oriented template than a goal-oriented one. Try to be presence-oriented. Be present where we are. Try to appreciate what you have, what has knocked on your door, what has come for you, your blessings, your gifts, whatever has come by grace. Try to be present to all that. And according to your degree of presence to all that, I will say that will warranty your remaining progress, the next steps you will be taking, instead of merely becoming goal-oriented and make the whole spiritual life like a contest, like a competition, like a marathon, like an exhausting meritocracy. Like I'm not good enough, and eventually maybe the whole sadhana may end up becoming fueled by ego. I'm not enough. I have to be better. I have to be more perfect. I have to become a pure devotee. I have to be more advanced. Many times that can happen. That can be the main driving force, and that's not the fuel we want in our vehicle. Right? It has to be a humbling inspiration, a humbling gratefulness, a fascination, an awe and wonder filled with gratitude and love, where we voluntarily are giving ourselves, knowing that we're already loved unconditionally, and all this types of consideration. So again, I'm not saying any of this to cancel Madhurya Kadambini. I love the book. I remember years ago, I don't know, maybe 20 class seminar on that. So I have nothing against getting some clear picture of the different landscapes in the journey. But remember that in one sense, again, there is a journey and it seems to be a destination, but at the same time, in one sense, the journey is the destination. Because we always continue on a journey. Even when you reach the official destination, Golok Vrindavan, Prem Bhakti, however you may like to call it. I mean, in one sense, the journey begins there. The different ways to talk about it. No? Jiva Goswami will say, sadhana bhakti, which is the first 7 from these 9 stages, sadhana bhakti is a preliminary preparation for real bhakti. So again, you can read that from a place that you become discouraged and think, oh, I'm not doing anything yet. But that's not the point. He's making this point like, when you reach bhava bhakti, oh, now we are starting to talk in a very deep, serious way. What starts to happen there? It doesn't mean that whatever happens before that means nothing, but it speaks about how even that high stage that for us is the goal to attain constitutes in itself a type of beginning also, a type of start. So for me, that's what he's saying, that it's giving this humbling sense of students forever. Now, when you think, okay, I'm reaching Bhava Bhakti, I'm almost there, preliminary stage for love of God, Prema Suram Susamya Bhak, Bhava Bhakti is the first ray of the sun of divine love. And Jiva Goswami is like, okay, now we are starting. When we are trying to settle for, okay, I'm almost arriving to the goal, game is over, we are starting to keep the whole thing ongoing, alive, and humbling. Again, humbling. Humility is so important for us. So this idea of I get it, I achieved it, I get my goal, is a subtle way of colonizing transcendence. It has nothing to do with humility. Real humility means what? Mahaprabhu himself, the greatest volcanic expression of divine love. And he saying, Na prema gandhashti darapi harome. In me, there is not even the scent, the aroma of divine love. He's genuinely feeling that. Because there's so much more love to be had. There's endless prospects. So you have something, but you see all that that is waiting there for you, and you don't dare to assert yourself, put the flag and colonize, say, I have it, I reach it, I'm in the goal. That's why Sanatana Goswami say, prema and dhanya, divine love and humility, act like cause and effect for each other. The more love you have, the more humble you are. The more humble you are, the more love you have. That has to be that way. So, okay, we have certain stages. We try to ascertain where we are. We try to acknowledge our adhikar, our present capacities, limitations. That's great. That's necessary. Totally. Today I'm trying to focus on the other side, but also be careful of not becoming, again, in a toxic way, too much certain about that. And the stages, and I'm here and I need to be there, and then I need to be there. And everything becomes about getting somewhere else by being completely absent from where I am now. So yeah, I have to take a step forward, but also that step forward has to be sustained by a step where I am here now. So there's nothing to, as limited as we may be, as broken and messy as we may be, there's so much to be grateful for where we are now. There's so much to appreciate, to celebrate. So we have to just be careful not to lose sight of that. We cannot progress in bhakti by being ungrateful for what we already have. Follow my point? We cannot progress in bhakti, but being by rejecting and hating all that we have so far, because it's not enough, and the only real thing is that goal that I'm not yet there. No, we are progressing by being deeply grateful, appreciative, and integrating all that we have, plus what continues to come. So just to, approach these very beautiful literatures with this sensitivity in mind, so we don't become control freaks, right? Neurotic about goal achievement and all that type of stuff. All that to say, yes to Kanupriya. That was my reply. Yes. Then came some unfolding of that initial home. So I don't know how does it feel, Kanupriya? What do you think?
Yeah, so that means we can be grateful for this small boat because already we can discover so much. And just continue, of course. Also it helps very much. An additional question. So sometimes even on my level or on others' level, we can sometimes taste or have a higher taste. Maybe some minutes or we really feel a connection to Krishna. Or I heard some devotees, they had some, they saw Krishna somehow. So are these glimpses of Ruchi and then the higher levels, can one say it like this? Or so that means we don't have to go step by step, but sometimes we can have some glimpses of higher love.
Again, my reply is home. Yes. And this is described also in the scriptures, that sometimes devotees can receive, as you say, glimpses, trailers of what's to come, right? So you can have some very deep ecstatic experience of some bhava abhas. Sometimes it's called like a shadow of bhava, like a trailer of bhava, while you are not in bhava bhakti. So of course that and it's only a glimpse, because probably if the whole thing will come immediately, it will be too much for us. We are not accustomed to deal with such intensity. So you have all these descriptions in Shastra as well, that there are certain emotions that we are not able to experience in this body here and now. We need to wait to die and be born. Like, for example, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Raghavarma Chandrika, which is kind of a not continuation, but connected sequel to Madhurya Kadambini. He will say, if you attain certain level of advancement in this lifetime, considerable, then you may be born in the womb of a Brajavasi on a planet Earth, where Krishna is performing his Leela there. So you will be receiving bhakti samskars from the womb, from day one, being born by Brajavasi and surrounded by eternal associates of Krishna. So with that type of environment, then you will be able to hold the intensity of spiritual emotion that will come from the level of advancement you made. Because if not, it's too much. So, and hopefully this is not scary for anyone. It's just for us to understand that, again, the sea is so immense and maybe the boat's still a little smaller by comparison. Still is a boat, still is having a purpose. Still we are grateful for that, and we honor and worship that boat. We are not like insulting that. We are just comparing the immensity of the sea and the immensity and the intensity and the depth and the breadth. So I always like to recall this, going from the Goswamis to George Harrison. He will say in one of his songs, "It's all too much." It's all too much. So it's a few words to depict, like, when you have a real encounter with reality, maybe you will end up saying that it's all too much, in the good sense of the term, no? Because you can say the same thing in a negative sense. So yeah, we can have some of these glimpses, and I will say that probably most of us have had. Maybe we didn't have the language to articulate, oh, this is what happened here. Oh, this is actually a trailer of this. But I'm sure many of us have had experiences that came way beyond our daily normal experience, and we were like, what was that? Like, what just happened? It was real. I'm hallucinating. I'm awakened. You start like to pinch yourself. What happened here? Trying to make sense. You try to think, and the more you think about it, the more you lose the experience. The more you try to put words to that, the more the experience evades you. So it's in one sense you can just hold it in your heart and just like, yeah, and share it confidentially, because also we don't want to make like a public show, publishing, I don't know, making a post in Instagram. You don't know, you don't have an idea the trailer of Bhav that I have last night. Please share your comments about it. Right? We are supposed to share those things in secrecy. No, we can share those things, but in a very confidential, secret, intimate way. So that keeps this, the sacredness of the experience, and we do not cheapen the whole thing. So yeah, those things can happen, and those things are reminders and are confirmations in our path, reminders that, and some of those experiences is, even if you just had one 25 years ago, you can still hold on to that thing decades after without having any other experience like that, and still remember, because of that, I know that the whole thing is true. This truth, totally. That was so real. Those few seconds were so real that all my rest of my life cannot compare with that moment of full reality. And that's basically the answer that Sukadev Goswami gives to Parikshit Maharaj in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. When Parikshit Maharaj goes to Sukadev and asks him, do you know what, Gurudev? I have 1 week of life. No, even knows he was cursed to die in a week, 7 days, Parikshit Maharaj. I have 1 week of life. So I'm concerned if I will be able to attain the goal of life or not. Again, going back to our first question. Will I get there or not? And Sukadev Goswami chuckled and said, 1 week. Like implying, that's so much time. He said, just one moment of full presence, full contact, full facing reality. Sammukyata, in the words of Jiva Goswami. Turning your face fully toward the divine, in the words of Prabhupada, going back to Godhead. Instead of giving your back to Godhead, going back to Godhead. Sammukyata. One of those moments, it's enough. So I also take that in that way. Or like, for example, when the scriptures say, Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastra Kai Labha Matra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hai. We have heard these verses, like say, just from 1 nanosecond of association with the sadhu, Sarva Siddhi Hai, all perfection comes. And some of us may say, like, wait a minute, and you start to do your calculation. I've had so far like 3,000 hours of sadhu sangha, and perfection is not yet here. You are talking about lava matra, just 1 nanosecond, and all sarva siddhi, all perfection. How to understand that? So the idea is, in principle, that's there. All perfection is waiting. Srila Srinivas will say, perfection is everywhere. We are nowhere. That's the problem. Perfection is omnipresent. We are omni-absent, right? Perfection is everywhere, but we are not there yet. That's why perfection, we have not met perfection. But also we can understand this verse like, you can have a moment of genuine sadhu sangha, of genuine contact with the true agent of the truth, and you are really open and vulnerable. And you can have an experience with that person or with that group, whatever, even for a moment, that is so true that even you have not attained perfection immediately, but that moment is setting your whole journey. It's putting your whole journey in context. After that moment, you are no longer the same. There's no return journey from that. You cannot ignore that. You cannot undo that. So in that sense, you have attained all perfection. It's just a matter of time. You have a contact with reality as it is, in Prabhupada's words. It's undeniable. It's too real to deny, too vast to comprehend, but already settling your journey toward perfection. And even if after years or decades you have ups and downs, faith crisis, and all the stuff you will have for sure, still those moments remain there as real as ever, and they keep your whole journey in context, and they keep you giving hope and shelter and so on and so forth. So yeah. But again, Kanupriya, my answer will be yes.
Wow, thank you. This gives hope.
Right. There is hope, of course. There is hope. Okay. A few more hands raised. Fasten your seatbelt, and we go from Germany to Ireland. Not so far. A little bit. Sweta Radhika is there.
Pranam Maharaj. Okay, my question. So I was recently reading autobiography of Saint Therese of Lisieux, and I noticed how, like, in quite a few places, she says how much she loves God, like, you know, how much she loves God, how much she loves Jesus. So I was thinking how, like, in our tradition, if you say you love God, immediately you'll be called a sahajiya. And it's almost like you can never say that, you know? So, like, yeah, I mean, I understand, like, just sometime, like, few minutes ago, you were saying, you know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that, like, he has no love, which means that, like, you know, when you reach the higher stages, you see how much more there is to achieve. So, in that sense, you know, like, you know, there's, he says there's no love. But yeah, I was just thinking, you know, like, somehow it seems to me that a lot of things are said in a negative way, you know, kind of like the regulative principles, don't do this, don't do that, and, like, you know, okay, I have no love. So I was thinking, I mean, you do share positive side of the don't do's. So I was thinking maybe here you can also share, like, a positive side of, like, I have no love, you know, like, why is it, like, you know, that we can't say that we love? Maybe, like, yeah, we don't, there's so much more to love, but still in our stages also that it's possible that we have something, you know, like some affection. So, yeah.
Yeah. So the real question is, did Teresa of Lisieux have love or not?
No.
I don't think anyone will argue that, right? If you know her life, you will know that she was a lover of God with her beautiful little way. So yeah, thank you for your question. I appreciate it, and of course, it adds nuance to what we are talking so far. And I hope it's clear that I'm not here. We are not here establishing some type of norm like you cannot say that you have love for God, because if you do so, you will be immediately ostracized from our society or labeled and branded as a sahaja, or like, no, there is place to acknowledge that gift and celebration of love. And there is place to say I have no love as well. It's paradoxical, but that's love, right? Let's keep that in mind. No, let's not approach love with an exclusivistic mentality. It's this or it's this, right? If you have love, you can only say I have no love, and if you say I have love, you have no love. There are statements in the scripture which go to that in that way. There are sections that say those who have love have no love. But there's a point that is trying to be made there. To follow my point, it's not so much about if Teresa Lisieux say that, then that means she has no love. That's not the point. The point is be careful of asserting your attainment or your experience in a way that prevents you from further embracing something that is endless. No? Like love doesn't take a holiday, right? So we shouldn't take a holiday from love either. That's kind of the invitation. It's an ongoing invitation. So I will take all those sections or statements as preventive of us being complacent, right? But there is place, and I would say in certain stages of the journey, it's even healthy to acknowledge, yeah, there is love. I have love. Of course, at the same time, we can say bhakti is not inherent in the jiva, but me as a bhakta, by the grace of sadhus and parampara and Krishna, though bhakti is not inherent in the jiva, there is a possibility of having bhakti, of course. And there are degrees of love, right? So once the bhakti latavich, as we may speak sometimes, this seed of divine, of devotion, is shared with us in sadhusang, in kirtan, in different ways, there is place to say there is love. I have love, of course, in a way that is not egocentric, right? It's not like I've earned this love. I've manufactured love myself. I'm a love. I have a machine of love here, and I'm creating it. No, it's not like that. Love is never, as I like to say, love is too much to be deserved. So we cannot even use that word. We need to resort to another language. We cannot talk about love and deserving love. So yeah, there is a place to say, I've been graced with love. Or even if I say I have love, okay, but be careful that when you say that, you are saying it with the right spirit and not, again, like a colonizing thing. I have love. It's my merit. It's my attainment. Because it's a gift. Love is always a gift. Love is always too much. So there will be moments that we can acknowledge the love that has come to our lives, that we can acknowledge our best attempts to try to receive and honor that and hold that in our lives. There's place to confirm all that, to celebrate all that, but also in a way that leaves the door open for an ongoing more of that. And then you may, and at one point you may end up saying, I have no love, which again seems paradoxical, seems contradictory. Or what to speak, someone like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as I like to say. He not only will say, I have no love, he will say, I am full of lust. If you study his Sharanagati prayers, one point he's saying, I'm full of lust. And you can be confused because it's like, okay, so was Bhaktivinoda Thakur full of lust? Is he really making here a confession for all of us to know? No. So why he say that? Was he faking it just for us to identify with his prayer? We who are full of lust? I don't think so either. I don't think he was calculating while writing, okay, I will put I'm full of lust, so Swami Padmanabha, who will read this 2 centuries after, will be able to identify with my prayer. So why he say that? From which place that's coming in a way that makes some sense? And what came to me is that, again, he's having a glimpse of how much more love could be had. He has love, he's Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but there's so much more love to be had that by contrast, by comparison with all the love that remains to be embraced, he looks back at him and says, I'm full of lust. Which again is paradoxical. It may be confusing for us. We cannot probably imitate that. Or we could say I'm full of lust from another place. Right? But yeah, I think there is place to acknowledge that love, we have love, but again, with proper sensitivity. And I will say from 2 places. One, of course, we can all say, there is love coming to us in the sense of Krishna is loving everyone unconditionally. So that's coming toward us. That doesn't mean that we have done something to open ourselves and honor and receive that. That's a different story. But in principle, Krishna is loving everything and everyone unconditionally. So in that sense, everyone can speak about love coming to their lives. Now, on another level, yeah, what are we doing to honor that, to acknowledge that, to open ourselves to that, and then to reciprocate that, and to return the embrace? So if something of that is going on, Again, by grace, it's not just our own creation. There is place to see that. There is place to acknowledge that and to celebrate that in a humbling way, in a way that doesn't make us more proud, more unstagnant in our stages, but make us feel more humble, more aware of the gifts, more inspired to continue returning. Because as we were saying before, if I'm already doing bhakti, means I'm already doing the thing that I want to do forever. Right? That's my goal. Now, my goal of bhakti is to do what I'm doing now. So, and that's what probably the other day I remember Sam quoted that from Srila Prabhupada in one purport. He says, between devotional service, there's no difference between devotional service and the kingdom of God. If you are doing devotional service, you are in the kingdom of God. There's no difference. Because again, sadhya and sadhana, no, the means and the goal are the same. So there's a place for me to acknowledge. I use strong words, but I think there's a place for that, and I put that in my third book. There's a place to say that I am saved. I can say that. I am saved. By grace, not my merit, but I'm saved. Bhakti came, knocked my door. I dared to open. I'm saved. Now, the real question for us as bhaktas is not so much how do I get saved or not, but what do I do with my salvation? Because I'm already saved. Again, I'm not saying from a proud place and complacency, I'm already saved. Don't bother me. But if I really acknowledge that from the proper place, I will be consumed with this following question. What to do with my salvation? What I am saved for? That's a very important question. That's a very important question. What I'm saved for? But Teresa is adding, saved for, not saved from. Right? So there's a positive purpose in salvation. Now, salvation is not just about leaving some place, getting saved from someone, getting rid of this, but being saved for. We want to be for something. Bhakti is not being against something. Because many times we can orient our practice negatively. It's just about mukti. It's just about leaving samsara. It's just not returning to this body. It's just about, like, I don't know, defeating the evil witch Maya Devi, which, by the way, that the whole thing is a misconception. Maya Devi is a sacred potency serving Bhagavan. So be careful of committing Vaishnavi aparat toward Maya Shakti. So it's not, bhakti is not to be against something, it's for something. So what I'm saved for. So anyhow, I don't know how I got to that particular branch of the tree discussing the topic, but it's connected to Swetadev Radhika's question. So at certain stage, there is place to see and to acknowledge love coming, celebrated, again, in a humbling way, in an inspiring way that keeps me concerned with this question, consume, if you will, with this question, what I'm saying for, how can I serve, how can I love, how can I return the embrace? That's kinkara. No? That's the word that Mahaprabhu used in Sikshastakam, verse 5. Aji nanda tanuya kinkaram. Kinkaram translates as servant. So kinkara, kim means what, kara means to do. So kinkara means what can I do? That's the only question that a servant has. What can I do? How can I serve you? How can I return the embrace? How can I love you more? That only questions will remain with us forever. When all the other questions have been solved, so to say, there's one question that will never be fully solved, that we can always present it over and over again. Kinkara. How to serve, how to love, how to return the embrace. What can I do? How can I make you happy today? So whether we say I have love, I don't have a tinge of love, whatever the case and the situation we are in, that question, all that has to happen in the context of kinkara, of increasing our loving disposition. Because you can say, I have love, and become proud, and think it's my own attainment. And you can say, I have nothing of love, and become discouraged, hopeless, and depressed. And we don't want either of those scenarios. right? So there is a correct way of addressing each one, and there is an incorrect way of addressing both of them as well. So there is a bona fide place to accept and acknowledge the grace, the gifts that are coming. There are sections, scriptures, where we find great devotees acknowledging that in a humbling way again, and leaving space for more of that. And there is, again, ways to wrongly assert our position, our situation, and to filter the gifts that had come and to put our signature below that. And it's all about me. Of course, there's a part that we are playing. We are co-authors on some level, but it's not all about us. So yeah, I think the yardstick, the litmus test, is to feel internally, is this invoking humility in me, saying that I have love, or saying that I have no love? What's the fruit of that? What's creating in me? It's creating hope, inspiration, humility, a deeper desire to return embrace. If that's happening, I don't care if you say I have no love or I have love. That's secondary for me. But the real thing is happening. So it's not about which words we use and what we say, because we can select the words and impress people and say the legal stuff, but what's going on internally? That's the real question, right? Yeah, that's what's coming today. Swetadip, Radhika, what do you think?
That's very helpful, Maharaj. I really loved everything you shared, but one thing that stood out was how, the love we have is a gift. It's not our own creation. So yeah, we have to become humble about that. And something that also occurred to me is, we are off, from the beginning we are told, this is what we ask for, give me prema bhakti, give me love. So it almost feels like we are asking, and then and one day we will receive it. I mean, that's the idea, we get in the beginning. But definitely, hearing from you, now I've understood that it's not like that, and that the gradually, we are receiving, as we pray. So yeah, I mean, it's there as a gift. So yeah, it doesn't really matter whether we say we have it or not. I think for me, it's really helpful to see the positive approach, like you were saying, not have the negative orientation toward bhakti, So all the positive approach has really been helpful, with everything, even the regulative principles, and even in this case. Yeah, and you're talking about being saved, and I was thinking that, just learning, not learning as such, but yeah, you're reminding us again and again how we are loved unconditionally by God. It's it's saving us, literally, me every day, just to know that, with my practice and just life in general, it's such a huge thing to remember and know that. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So let's continue. There's one more raised hand from California. So we traveled from Ireland to the west coast of the US. Long journey, just a lot of jet lag. You will have, sorry for that. Not you, Rasangi, you're already there. You're not traveling. So all the rest of us will come with jet lag, no problem.
Oh, okay, but I am traveling on Wednesday to my mom's 100th birthday party.
100th birthday party?
100th birthday party next week in New Jersey.
Where is that?
In New Jersey, at the Jersey Shore.
Okay, then you will have your jet lag for sure.
I wish I could hop, skip, and jump to DC after that. It's a thought. Anyway, I don't know what happened to Yugala. Yugala, you can
Are you asking him about his mustache? What happened to him?
No, you go ahead, but he down, and
He's been a gentleman and allowing you to raise your hand.
I know, but the only reason I'm going is because I think we'll both have time. We still have
probably we have time for both, no problem.
So don't worry, but I don't want you to put your hand down. This is Maharaj. I read something on Facebook earlier, and I'm just so hurt. I get really messed up.
Every time you say I've read something on Facebook, I get chills. I get a little nervous.
I know, because I hear arguing and put downs, and I'm so sensitive to it now, and it makes me so sad, and it just hurts. It hurts. I hate it.
And that's what Facebook is made for. You know it.
Yeah, it's really thought it was supposed to be sharing and inspiring others and lifting each other up. But it's being, and devotees, my people, my tribe is using it and weaponizing it. And it's so sad. But so I got referred to this verse today, and I felt it was like important to talk about it and go over it a little bit. And it's in the first canto, 17th chapter, and it's the 22nd verse. And it's pretty famous. It's like with Mars Parikit and the bull, the Dharma bull. I love the Dharma bull. I love this section. I'm all into the new theories and taking whatever we can to help us heal, and that will add to our be able to pursue bhakti better. But I like to refer to our own scripture, of course, and find confirmation there too. So this verse 22, and it's the king said, King Parikit is talking to the bull. Oh, you are in the form of a bull. You know the truth of religion. You are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of an irreligious act is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion. So in the purport, and Prabhupada wrote this in late 50s, I think. So I love that. This was the original writings way back then, when he's talking about no one is responsible for being a benefactor or a mischief monger without the sanction of the Lord. Therefore, he doesn't consider anyone to be directly responsible for such action. But in both cases, he takes it for granted that either benefit or loss is God sent, and thus it is his grace. In the case of benefit, no one will deny that it's God sent, but in the case of loss or reverses, one becomes doubtful about how the Lord could be so unkind to his devotee to put him in such great difficulty. Jesus Christ was seemingly put into such great difficulty, being crucified by the ignorant, but he was never angry at the mischief mongers. How kind that Prabhupada calls it. There's lots of other words being used now other than that, mischief mongers. That is the way of accepting a thing, either, I'm sorry, I lost you here, either favorable or unfavorable. So this is a particular sentence that I like. Thus, for a devotee, the identifier is equally a sinner, like the mischief monger. By Krishna, by God's grace, the devotee tolerates all reverses. Maharaj Parikit observed this. Therefore, he could understand that the bull was none other than the personality of religion himself. In other words, a devotee has no suffering at all, because his so-called suffering is also God's grace for a devotee who sees God in everything, right? The cow and the bull never placed any complaint before the king for being tortured by the personality of Kali, although everyone lodges such complaints before the state authorities. Hey, so much complaining now. That's what kills me. Everyone is blaming everybody else all the time. The extraordinary behavior of the bull made the king conclude that the bull was certainly the personality of religion, for no one else could understand the finer intricacies of the codes of religion. And I just wanted to read one more thing that came from the bull.
I would prefer if we can summarize, Rasangi, because too much reading can get our attention.
Okay.
So I will prefer if you can focus on what's the question or the comment or the theme.
Okay.
Present to us, please.
Well, Prabhupada, Krishna says that it's very difficult to ascertain particular miscreants because we're all bewildered by different opinions of theoretical philosophers. There's so many different opinions, huh? So it's just that, I'm just feeling that there's so much criticism, and I find it disheartening, and I find it, and it's from our own people, and like they disregarded Dharma because we wear the dress and we have the right words. We don't have to pay attention to how we behave. You know what I mean? It kind of, and it's such a sad thing that we've neglected to pay attention to living in Dharma, living dharmically, living dharmically, and skipping over and then blaming everybody else and criticizing everybody. Dharmically, we can learn how to adjust and have a better vision and not be confused, not like see everyone else as our enemy. Yeah. So if you could offer a few words. I still find that problematic and hurtful. And I'm happy we're doing something about it. You are constantly doing something about this by integrating everything on this path. The integration is so important. But Prabhupada said this 60 years ago, 70 years ago, and still, yeah.
Yeah, what to say? I mean, you already said it, Rasangi. I mean, it's of course, it's disturbing, but it's part of the, especially in times we are living in, I would say big part, I mean, not to take responsibility from the individual, but this blaming and polarizing and creating like groups, that's so much in the collective of the times we are living. So because we are practicing Krishna Bhakti, that doesn't mean that we are beyond the collective and conscious of our times, actually. So we are also carried away by that, whether we know it or not. So I think it's healthy for us to gain awareness of how much we can be drawn by that, and we can, I think, and that's a deep lesson that I've been contemplating, especially these last months after reading Father Richard Rohr's last book on the prophets, The Tears of Things. And he makes this important point over and over again, and he could make it so many more times and it's never enough, which is that many times we should be able, the prophets point as what he will call systemic evil or collective fault. Not so much, sometimes we point at individuals and we attack the individual, but we lose sight that the whole thing is lying in the collective. And individuals, of course, are there and have some responsibility, but also are carried away by what's there in the collective. So many times when pointing at something or criticizing at something, we should address the collective first, the zeitgeist. And that's where the real solution starts to happen. Not so much like pointing to one individual, another individual, and limiting it to that. Of course, in some level, yeah, individuals do horrible stuff that needs to be addressed. I'm not saying let's just go to the collective. But let's understand that the individual is existing in a collective, and there's something going on in the collective that somehow informs the individual to do whatever he or she does. So yeah, sometimes the dynamics of social media or general dynamics in our postmodern society are a little bit confusing, to say the least, in terms that generally they do not address so clearly, okay, guys, here we are dealing with a collective issue, and we are all part of that in one way or another. So instead of acknowledging that bigger picture, that more macrocosmic perspective, we just narrow it down to he did that and they say that and I'm counterattacking, and we just become very narrow-minded, fighting and defending and trying to solve things from one to one, while losing sight that there is a whole collective thing to be addressed, waiting to be addressed. So that's the vision of the prophets, in the words of Richard Rohr. They have this side of vision of bigger picture. They are not limiting solutions and problems to mere individuals, but they are putting everything in a bigger context. So I think, yeah, that we need to grow and mature as a community, become more educated about these things. So whenever we address an individual, we do so by remaining aware that whatever we are doing is happening in the context of something bigger than us, and we are aware of which are those currents of thoughts and opinions that are surrounding us in our days and times. So, and besides that, yeah, we have to give the best possible example we can do, and there will be still people, probably the majorities, who will fall short of that, and that's part of the game. And we should, I mean, I'm not saying we should be indifferent to that, but we should deal with all that in a way that is practical, is sustainable. Hopefully we are compassionate, but also we are not, how to say, our day is not over because other people is crazy. Right? There will be always people who is crazy, and I cannot depend on them becoming sober for me to be happy or for me to move forward, even if they happen to be my own group. Of course, one tries to create some tribe and close association with people who are not that crazy, or at least who are willing to be not that crazy, who have the honesty and sincerity to acknowledge that. Hopefully we can create that environment for each one of us. And there will be always some other opinions and thoughts, and we try to, again, be compassionate, not be resentful, not be bitter, not be cynical, not be hopeless, but also be realistic and not be naive, expecting that everyone will be perfect and everything will transpire in full harmony and perfection. No, we are not in Golok Vrindavan. So, so how to deal, for me, the art is that, how to acknowledge those things when they happen in a way that we do not become cynical, we do not become depressed, we do not become resentful, we do not become violent, but we acknowledge them, we are compassionate, we take practical steps, we take distance when that's required, and we save our time and energy also to be the example that we want to see in the world. At the end of the day, for me, that quote from Gandhi is very important, very challenging. Be the change you want to see in the world. Don't expect the world to be the change that should be happening in you. On some level, again, try to get my point here. But for me, that's a big part of what it means to have integrity. Now, to ask myself, am I doing all that I can to change all that I need to change? Or probably not, and I'm spending some time in how others are doing or not doing their own stuff. And how much that becomes an escape from me doing what I know I could do. And then you have to solve that. That's between you and your pillow, right? Between you and your consciousness. And that's what it means to have integrity. Yeah, and be careful of nostalgia. And be careful of attachment to people being or acting in certain ways. that you would like them to be, but that's not happening, and we have to release and let go. If not, it becomes a control mechanism where we want people to speak in this way. Of course, we wish things to be in an ideal way or in a certain way, but if that's not the case, we have to be careful not to become, again, extremely affected by that to the point that we become or paralyzed or potential serial killers. It can go in so many directions. Because if you really go deep, zoom in into the condition of the present time in many directions, you go crazy, you get depressed, you want to kill everyone, you want to kill yourself. So it's important to zoom out on some level, not to lose sight of that, but also to put that in a bigger context, and also to zoom in into other beautiful, incredible things that are going on simultaneously. And do not forget that. So it's a complex array of things happening simultaneously. So we have to also keep our sane mind and be practical to function and operate on daily life. Because if I just concentrate myself, okay, how many rapings are happening at this exact moment on planet Earth now? I become overwhelmed. I'm paralyzed because there's so much of that going on right now at this moment that we are talking. Or people being killed, people being, there's no end to that. And there's no end to the other stuff, the good stuff. So we don't want to escape from one thing in the name of the other. So trying to put all in balance, all in the scale, all in context. That's a discipline. That would, again, for me, what it means to have integrity. You are integrating. You are not discarding anything. You are allowing everything into the bigger picture, but everything becomes contextualized by everything else, and you ultimately, the center of reality remains being love. So the center of reality is never replaced for hate or something, even if it may seem so. If we feel that's the case, then we need to change our angle of vision, as Srila Maharaj will say. We need to recalibrate. And that's sadhana. On a daily basis, we need to go back to our center because we lose perspective so easily. We may be carried away to one direction or to the other, to the direction where everything is nice, and I lose sight of terrible things going on that I may need to be aware and be empathic with and do something about. Or we may be over-identified with that and lose sight of the positive stuff that is still happening in the context of that. So the integration of the two is real maturity. When you can see that at the end of the day, suffering, hate never overcome love. That's the final lesson maybe that we need to learn. That love conquers over everything. And the fact that still horrible things and suffering are happening, one of the reasons is to teach us that even if that's the case, love conquers if we are open to love even in those moments. And we have testimonies of people in those situations where we can clearly see that's a possibility, at least. In practice, we may try, we may fail, but in principle, we know that's how reality operates. So I hope that helps, Rasangi.
It was very, very beautiful. I think for me, still letting go of old guard thinking or idealizing and the pain, the suffering, because I have a taste now of that different energy flow, love, and that kind of that vision. And still it's hard to let go of what I had been, right? Moving into a different place, more concretely, peacefully, just accepting, accepting and then letting go, rejecting, accepting, moving on, that thing. Being able to do that, integrate that, But I appreciate your answer a lot. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for sharing. Okay, we have a few minutes. So, Jugalji, something short, you prefer to leave it to the next meeting? I don't know.
Well, it was something you mentioned earlier that 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 piqued my interest, and it was in relation to, I believe, Dweep's question, and those statements in the Gita that are there to help encourage us and build us hope. That's what you were explaining. Like bhakti.
The audio is not working so well today for some reason.
Let's see if this is better. Okay. My question, or I guess my reaction that I wanted to explore more was in relation to what you were saying about statements in the Gita that Krishna, that are there to basically build us confidence, help secure our faith. And I thought, oh wow, I could use that. I want that. I need some more secure faith. And it made me think, like, well, what is the relationship of this Krishna of the Gita to Krishna in Vraj, or other Krishnas, or other faces of God, even in a wider view? This Krishna that wants to build us faith, wants us to come to him. Of course, then when we get there, there's so much playfulness, and there's maybe sometimes what looks like from the outside, insecurity in the context of security. So that's maybe a big question, but just on a personal level, needing to secure my faith much more with those kind of elementary statements of, anything you do in bhakti is never lost, and I maintain what you have and possess what you lack, and those sorts of statements. So, when do we really ever move away from God as guru, and that's suspended, or is that always sort of a backdrop in the journey of the soul towards unity with God?
I have 2 minutes to answer your question. That deserves a long answer. So I'll take a few minutes and say something, and if you need to share more, we can continue next week or something. Of course, when we say Krishna in the Gita, as you say, he's talking to Arjuna in a particular setting. Then we have, Krishna speaking another version of the Bhagavad Gita to Uddhav in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. So that's another Krishna, because that's another audience, right? Of course, it's the same Krishna, but it's another Krishna. It's another message. But I agree with you that, at least on a foundational level, we need to develop this strong faith on the power of bhakti, and how bhakti stays with us, and how Krishna is committed to protect his devotee. Not like convincing us blindly of something that actually is not that, but actually getting a firm footing in those facts, and of course trying to take them to an experiential level, not keeping them just mere theory. And on that foundation of certainty, if you wish, we can embrace levels of uncertainty that before that we could not even think about. So yeah, on top of that, then you have Krishna playing the flute, calling the gopis, gopis go. Krishna say, go back to your home. I didn't call you. What's going on here? So Chris, all this like uncertainty in the context of the Vraja Lila. So it seems like contradictory, but it's not contradictory. No, the gopis actually stay there and all that. But the idea with this is that as much as you progress into deeper versions of the divine, there are more layers of mystery to integrate there. So of course, for that, you need to have some bedrock, some foundation of faith and understanding about God's protection and bhakti's strength. So the more you progress and the more things seem to become the opposite, Krishna seems to become suddenly now a liar and a womanizer, and not like the dharmic prince of the Gita. Seems to be the opposite. It's not the opposite. So that's why first you have to have this firm foundation of understanding of faith, So the more we start to move more into the mystery, into the esoteric dealings of him in more intimate terms, the more we can advance, really advance there with firm footing and not get confused, but actually be able to coexist with that mystery, that uncertainty, as part of the faith journey, as something that ends up nourishing the journey. But again, that's not something to rush into, and it's not that everyone and anyone can just jump and be there. In the beginning, we may need to have more a certainty dose, so to say, of clarity and this and that, and Krishna loves you. You are loved by Krishna. You go learn to love yourself. Krishna loves you. We may need to hear that a few lifetimes till we start to be more concerned about self-forgetfulness in divine love. If I try to do that rushing, it may become dysfunctional and self-neglectful, right? So yeah, the goal, you see the Vraja Vasis, they are absolutely self-oblivious. They forgot about themselves in divine love for Krishna. If we try to imitate that, we may end up in the psychiatric hospital or something. So we may need first to be grounded in these ideas. You are loved, you are accepted, you belong, Krishna loves you, bhakti is not lost. If you do not attack it, whatever you attain is there, you are protected. Okay, safety, security, shelter, certainty. It's fine. We have nothing against certainty. But that serves as a foundation for deeper layers where there comes uncertainty and mystery and paradox and doubt, nourishing faith, and all these apparently opposites that can coexist together from a deeper place. But again, first we need to get there in a healthy way. That's what I can say in 2-3 minutes. There is so much more to say, actually. But we'll put a rest here so we can spend a few more minutes in other forms of sharing. Sri Chaitanya